Hey everybody, I hope you're doing great. Welcome. Facebook Live, we're going to do a book signing. You're here and we're going to talk about Dream Big if you're up for it. So I think as people are joining, I hope you'll enjoy some of the things. What you might want to do is have a pencil or a pen, get some paper, and hopefully there'll be something that we're talking about this afternoon that'll resonate with you. It'll kind of ping you. If you're like me, I've got my eyes open all the time for things. I'm like the king of metaphors. I'm just always thinking about what does this mean? We've got a place here in the mountains outside of San Diego, such as they are, and we're putting in a vineyard, which is kind of cool. So I got a brushing machine, and so I've been going through like taking the brush out with this machine. Guess what's underneath the brush? The snakes. Oh my gosh. And so I was thinking, oh, this is going to be great. I didn't have anything to write on, so I write it on my hand. It's like my Palm Pilot. And so what would be better, so you aren't all like tatted up, you don't have a bunch of ink at the end of the day, find something that you can write on, maybe that you might even hang on to. And write down some of these notes. What I don't want you to do is make a list. Lists are for rookies. What I want you to do is make moves. So make the call, send the text, write the letter. Those kinds of things will really launch you forward. So what we're going to do is talk about this book. And if you've been following me along in this process, it was many years ago. I was a pretty good lawyer. But we started these schools overseas. We had one in India and Uganda, and we actually, I had a bigger ambition than I had the finances. I was a pretty good lawyer, but I wasn't good enough. And so then I entered into an agreement with this amazing publisher, Thomas Nelson. Those guys are terrific. And what we did is we swapped a book for a school. And so we built this school with all the proceeds from Love Does, but then they sold a ton of books, like way seven figures of these. And so we just kept on building schools. We now have schools, it's India, Uganda, Nepal. We built a school and a hospital in Iraq. We built a school. We just finished one in Afghanistan. That's crazy. Maybe we'll have time to talk about that later. In Mogadishu, Somalia. And here's the thing. God isn't dazzled when you go across the ocean. You know what blows his hair back is when you go across the street. He was a lawyer like me that asked him, what's the big commandment? And he said, here's the two things. And they're tied for first. Love God with your heart, soul, and mind, and love your neighbors yourself. And boy, I'm telling you, that is sometimes difficult. Because the people around us are difficult and we're actually difficult. You guys thought this was a book signing. It's actually an intervention. You are not as lovely as you think you are sometimes. And so what I wanted to do with Love Does is write a book that would remind people about who they were. With everybody always, if Love Does was let's get a puppy, everybody always was let's train the puppy. And now with Dream Big, after a book of Devos, this one is like, let's train the owner. Let's talk about what your ambitions are, why you're doing what you're doing, what do you want, why do you want it, and what are you going to do about it? So if you have questions, send them in. You can send them to premiercollectibles.com and then a / Dream Big. So you can ask me anything. My favorite pie, apple cobbler. So you don't have to send that one in. Just send me a pie. Feed my belly. But if you have questions about the book, questions about an ambition that you have, questions about me or how we're making our way through this life, my ambition was to connect with people at a deeper level. And what I found is that writing was a great way to do it. I think everybody has a book or two in them. If you're listening, I think you've got a book or two in you. We just need to get that book out of you. What I did is not just stop with the ambition. I did the heavy lifting that goes along with fulfilling that ambition, moving it forward. So if you want to be an author, just off. I know it's not a word, but just write words. Start with one, maybe expand that to 5. Maybe you'll be up to a whole sentence sometime. Who knows? Maybe you'll go to 5 sentences, a paragraph, maybe even a chapter. Don't just think about it. make moves. And because that's what a movement is. It's just a bunch of people like you and me making moves. And my hope with Dream Big is that this would reconnect you with an ambition of yours, particularly at this time where we've all been like cooped up. I don't know about you if you're hip to the Enneagram. I'm a flaming 7, not like just a 7. It's just like on fire, shoot me out of the cannon 7. And so being told to stay home, oh my gosh, at first I was ricocheting off the walls. And then you know what I did? I got connected back to my ambitions. And I said, what do I want? Isn't that a beautiful question? What if we start there? Like, what do you want? It was what Jesus asked every blind guy he ever met. The blind guy would be at the gate saying, I can't see. And Jesus would say, what do you want? And I don't think Jesus was confused about it. I don't think anybody around him was confused. I think he wanted to know if that person had clarity on what they actually wanted. I think another clarifying question is, why do you want it? Like, if you want to be popular, I think I'd ask myself, like, well, why? And well, how popular and to whom? The thing about popularity, man, it's here now, it's gone later. What if you want depth of relationships? What if you want authenticity to be the hallmark of the conversations that you have? Man, those are things that you want. Why do you want that? Because you say one of the things that's happened in the last 3 months is we've eliminated all the shallow relationships, and all that's left are the ones that are mile deep. And if you're feeling like you don't have a lot of relationships with people, man, here's your chance. Let's go make some. Make the call. To send the text. Like, actually say, let's just talk about this for a couple minutes. Let's talk about what's really going on inside of you. And that's where all the good stuff happens. So I promised Thomas Nelson I'd sign a couple of books. And if you guys want one of those books, premiercollectibles.com/dream big. But what I thought I would do is I could answer a couple of your questions while I'm doing this. And also, like, touch bases on some of the things that we're talking about. Let's talk about an ambition. Maybe when you were 8 years old. Forget the ambition you had yesterday. Like, think about the ambition that you had 8 years old. I want to address this idea of God shut the door. I don't know when the first time I heard that was, but it didn't sit well with me then. It didn't sit well with me now. This idea, you've had this beautiful ambition. It's right in line with everything the scriptures have talked about things that would be lasting, things that would please God. And so you applied for the job. You tried out for the internship. You made the call and you got a no. And you said, well, God shut the door. I'm like, are you kidding me? The only thing that happened is that Billy said no. Would you get back to building that rocket ship that was supposed to be your life? This thing that maybe God put in your heart that he didn't put in mine, he didn't put in anybody else's. Get after that thing. See what'll happen. I want to fail trying. I don't want to fail watching. How about you? I just want to like make some moves and see what happens along the way. And you know what'll happen? Is you're going to learn more about your faith. You're going to learn more about what you're good at. You're going to learn about what you stink at. And I don't think we're supposed to do all the stuff we stink at. But I want us to be courageous. I mean, Moses wasn't very good at speaking. And what did God say? You're the guy that's doing all the speaking. It's like, come on. But what he'll do is he'll drop somebody. He'll find an Aaron. He'll drop him into your life. And he'll say, actually, I'm pretty good at that. So what I'm trying to do is surround myself with people who are really, really good at being authentic. Not the people that have it figured out. Man, this is not a book of telling you what to do. Hopefully it'll remind you of who you are. And it'll bring you back to some of the things, some of these ambitions that you first had a long time ago. And then to say, like, what am I going to do next with this thing? Figure out your ambition. Then what I want you to do is to say, look for an opportunity for that ambition. Because as soon as you figure out what you want, then you start looking for it. I wanted a 1971 bus. I hadn't gotten a Volkswagen bus in 30 years. As soon as I decided I want a 71 bus, every third car that went by me, 1971 bus. Well, here's why. You find what you're looking for. If you're looking for hope, you're going to find it. If you're looking for cynicism, you'll find that too. What I want us to do is start looking for things that are going to last. I spent my whole life trying to do things that worked. And I think the pivot for me is something that lasts. And it comes by way of looking for an opportunity. It was May of, I think last year, maybe the year before, but there's an outfit called Hillsong. And they got together in London. They were going to have a big gathering. So I wrote to the Queen. I said, I'm going to be in London on May 16th. If you're in London on the 16th, I mean, let's hang out, right? Pinkies up. One of her ladies in waiting wrote back to me. I'm like, lady, what are you waiting for? And she said, the Queen is terribly disappointed she can't meet with you. I'm sure it just tore all up. But here's the deal. For $1 in postage and one envelope, I'm talking to Buckingham Palace. And I'm telling you, her address is not hard to find. Google it. Find people. I meet people that run different countries along the way just because I want to meet people that are in power, but I also want to meet unschooled, ordinary people. The kind that Jesus found. He changed the whole world with them. He didn't find somebody that had all the degrees or somebody that could melt your face with a Stratocaster. He can use people like that, but he always uses the poor, the folks that are without, to teach the ones. That's why he said hungry people, thirsty people, sick people, strange people, naked people, and people in jail. Those are my teachers. I teach at Pepperdine Law School, but I also teach at San Quentin Federal Penitentiary. I teach a class. I've got all kinds of guys in my class, and we have a great time. That's because I don't try to teach them. I'm a learner. I would characterize myself as a student of everything. I'm your student, man. Teach me something. I don't have anything to pass along. I could tell a couple good stories or things that I've learned along the way, that the snakes are under the brush. But what I do each time I'm up there is just shut up and learn. And I think there's something beautiful about that. If we could quiet ourselves down enough to actually look for some of the opportunities that are coming our ways, instead of going like Mach 5, hair on fire, which is my resting position, to just slow it down a little bit. Well, let me do this. We're going to continue to walk through some of the pieces of Dream Big and some of the framework that we've kind of set out in this book. But I want to answer some of your questions. And I have a couple friends with me on the other side of the cameras. They look like they're Dr. Fauci over there, all like... But we had a couple questions, so I'm going to ask him to read one to me.
Bob, I'm so excited to be a voice of one of your fans, one of your readers, one of your listeners. So it's so cool to see so many people chiming in today to ask great questions from you about not only about your book, but about life, even doing wheelies. So here we start. All the way from Heather in Alberta.
Come on.
Bob, what one personal action could people do daily that would contribute to a more equitable, generous, and loving society?
Oh, man. I just think Paul nailed it. He was talking to his buddies in a book in the Bible. It's called First Peter. And he said, always be ready to make a defense for the hope that's within you. And a lot of people stop reading there, but it continues on. But to do it with kindness and respect. And the only time, Heather, that I raise my voice is when I'm yodeling. And I've never yodeled. But to do it with kindness, respect, even when somebody's flat wrong. Because oftentimes I'm that guy. I find out later that I was flat wrong about that. And so that idea of humility, I'm not saying being bashful and kind of a lover. I'm a lawyer. I win arguments for a living. Yeah, you'd know if we were arguing because I'd be winning. But here's the deal. I'm not trying to argue with people anymore. I think that we don't need to like raise our voices. It reminded me when I was in college, I went to a Bruce Springsteen concert, right? Because he's a boss. I mean, who wouldn't want to go? And I went with two buddies, and one of them ended up with the keys to my car. And so I'm shouting to the guy next to me. I'm like, do you have the keys to my car? Because the room was so loud. And the guy behind me that came with us thought we were in an argument. And I'm like, oh, buddy, no. I'm just trying to speak over all the noise in the room. And I think that sometimes is happening in our society. We have really meaningful things to say. Like, I wanted my keys, and other people are looking for justice and want to hear their voices. What I want to do is not be yelling at each other and speak over all the loud noises. I want to be kind and respectful. And I'm telling you, that's the best kind of advocacy. You can get your point across and being kind and respectful and resolute. You know what you want, you know why you want it, and you decided what you're going to do about it. Great question, Heather. What's another question?
Well, this is a great follow-up to that one, because I know so many of us have dreams, but we also know the reality of obstacles. So, Megan, so close to us in San Juan Capistrano, California. Bob, can you share about one of the biggest obstacles to achieving a dream that you've encountered, and how can that be overcome?
Oh, yeah, Megan, great question. I'm thinking about swallows now and their flight to Capistrano. I hope they end up in your eaves. One of the things that'll happen, it was the beginning of Peter Pan. And he said the reason that the swallows nest in the eaves is they like to listen to the stories. Isn't that beautiful? One of the things that happens is that if we get authentic and we talk about obstacles that we've encountered along the way, I'll tell you one of the obstacles I encountered along the way is that I wanted a girlfriend in the worst way. All through junior high, nothing. High school, nada, zip. I got to law school and then I met Sweet Maria and I knew what my ambition was. I wanted that girl to be my wife. She wanted nothing to do with me. I mean, who could resist, right? She could resist. 3 years, I kept asking her out on a date. I knew she knew my name because she would say it as she was walking away. Like, no, Bob, I'm sorry, I can't see you ever. But I was respectful and kind. And so what I want you to do is to remind yourself when you hit an obstacle about why you started. And so I just reminded myself, I just didn't want to be creepy, but I wanted to be persistent. I wanted her to know that, boy, I'm just nuts about you. But I just did it in a non-creepy way. And I think sometimes what we can do is when we don't know what to do, I think our default position needs to be kindness and respect. And I think Maria warmed up to me because she saw somebody who was respectful over a period of time. When you have somebody that doesn't share that same worldview, that doesn't share the same ambition that you do, if you're respectful, it gives you a second shot and a third shot and a fourth shot. If you make it personal between you and them, then it's over. And now you've got more baggage than Delta Airlines. And so continue when you hit these obstacles to just be respectful, but remind yourself about why you started. Get a 3x5 card. Write down why you started because I want to name our kids. or write down why you started because I could save lives. Write down why you started because it was something that Jesus said would be worth it. Boy, I'm telling you, those kind of note cards around your house will look awesome. And other people won't understand. That's okay. Following Jesus means a life of being constantly misunderstood. But I want you to know why you started, why you're doing what you're doing. What a great question. Thanks a bunch, Megan. What's another one?
All right, this again is just such a great follow-up because sometimes those dreams can crash, can fail, right? Or attempts at those. So Jillian, all the way from West Sussex.
Come on.
Right? So good. What do you do if you're too scared to dream again?
Julian from West Sussex. Are you kidding me? It's 3 a.m. You need some sleep. When it crashes, I just want to remind yourself, but what was this about? What was it really doing? I'll give you an example. Those of you that know me know that we spend a lot of time up in Canada. There's a really remote place, and we built this lodge. It took us 20 years to build. It took 20 minutes for it to get burnt down. And I was like, we were just gutted by this thing. But I had a decision to make. Am I going to rebuild this thing or am I going to walk away? Am I going to say like God shut the door? God burnt the door down, literally? I don't think it was God. I think it was some people that made a mistake. And so what I did is I started building again. It took me 4 years to rebuild it. I am 61 years old. What would be important enough for you that you would spend 1/2 of your entire life building it and then rebuilding it? That would be an indicator that you want it. Some of your ambitions, some of the things that crash, they actually didn't matter that much. If I wanted a horse on day 1, I'd say, I want a horse. On day 2, if I got the horse, you know what I'd say on day 3? What horse? A lot of us are really fickle about our ambitions. Find one that you'd be willing to repeat all of the hard work. I'd chase after Maria all over again. If I could saw her walking down the street, I'd be walking next to her and say, hi, I'm Bob. She's like, this is like deja vu. 3 more years of no. But I knew why I wanted it. It was something that was worth pursuing. And I want you to find your way there. Get some sleep in Sussex. What's another question? This is awesome. I hope you guys are having a good time. I'm having a ball. And by the way, we're sitting in my garage. We just put white up here so you didn't have to look at a bunch of surfboards and all that. But one of the things that we do is we get to connect. We're not going to let the circumstances around us push us around. We can be aware of those and mindful and do the right things, but we're not going to let them beat us up. And that's a person who has determination. That's you. You know what you want. You know why you want it. You decided what you're going to do. What's the next question?
Actually, that's great. And because of what you just said, Bob, we're gonna jump the order here, and we're going to Wendy and Washington, who just asked, what is your advice to us in getting through our current state of affairs?
Oh man, Wendy, it's tough, isn't it? Could you just like take a big breath? Maybe everybody, we're not going to do yoga or burn incense, but just like really take one of those. You deserve it. Because it has really been difficult. There's a lot of pain, a lot of loved ones for all of us in Washington State. There's been so many setbacks there, and we've all taken a hit. And what I want to do is just be a little bit more kind and understanding. I want to assume the role as a student. I want to get less loud. I want to quiet down the room. I don't want to be shouting over people. I want to quiet it down. And in that, find this place. Jesus did the same thing. It was Mark, and he went away to a quiet place. He took his friends. He said, man, let's just grab some time, slow down the cadence a little bit. And you can't really consider some of the things and your way forward and your response. And for each of us, there'll be some parallels. When you see injustices, you need to call it out. But maybe each of us calls it out in a different way. God never compares what he creates. He created you, Wendy, to respond in one way with a sense of what is true. I'm not thinking about the loudest voice. I'm thinking about the truest voice. And then to say, with your circumstances and your giftedness, what's your next move? What's your next courageous step? There's a great movie, and it's called We Bought a Zoo. Have you guys seen that one? When we bought this camp out here in San Diego, somebody gave us a copy of this thing. And it's a father who, the wife had died of cancer. He's raising these kids alone, and he's looking for a restart. And so he buys this old house. What he doesn't realize immediately is there's a zoo behind the house. And the whole movie is about him kind of reconciling with his kids again. And there's one particular moment in the movie that's worth talking about. And he leans over to his son and he says this, all it takes is 20 seconds of insane courage. Honest, 20 seconds of just irrational courage, and it'll change everything. What my question to you is, Wendy, what would be your move that you'd make in 20 seconds? What would be a courageous move for you? Maybe it's standing up. Maybe it's raising a fist. Maybe it's raising your hands, palms up. But whatever it is, I want you to make your next courageous move. You want to get about your big ambitions? Make moves. Make some courageous ones. But keep your eyes on your own paper. Don't be looking at what everybody else is looking at. Learn from that. Become a student. But I'm not trying to be like Maria. We could not be more different. At the marriage, they said the two were going to become one. She thought we were going to become her. Like, oh, heck no. But she's not trying to be like me, and I'm not trying to be like her. We're trying to be like Jesus. And so do that. So say, what's my next move? I'm like, I don't know. What would make you a little bit more like Jesus? What would be a courageous 20-second move for you to do? Man, great question. I love it. Give me another one. I'm loving it. I hope you guys are having a good time. You ought to come over. We're just hanging out here.
I love this because this is a look at Bob Goff question. I mean, sometimes us as readers and listeners, we're all blown away at all that you do. So here's a great question, especially about your philanthropy and all the things that you give to. It says, are you just selling books to fund more giving? Like more great things? So what else do you do, Bob?
Oh man, I don't. You know the reason. It's not trying to not be boastful, but Jesus said, you know, if you go on a street corner and you make a big deal about what you do, you get this little golf clap, and if you just shut up for a little bit, you get to talk about it forever. And so, in terms of the Love Does book, I don't know how many they sold, but way over 1 million of them. We just gave all the money away. And it's been so fun, you guys. Even better than that, a whole posse of people saw there's nothing on the other side of the equal sign. Man, if I was 20 years old and could, like, play the guitar, I'd probably want to be popular. But I mean, like, I'm 61. I just want to make sure Maria still likes me. If she's in, I'm in. So what I would do is to say, remind yourself about why you're doing what you're doing. I'm the longest serving volunteer at Love Does. And you know what? I love that. And it was really a decision for me because I just didn't want to have it. It's not a bad thing to be on staff or do things, but I just wanted for me to know I got nothing in this. I got no skin in the game. I'm not trying to be cool. I'm not trying to whatever. So as you're pursuing your ambitions, when you get to this question of why are you doing what you're doing, just make sure that it's actually devoid of all the creepy stuff that'll get you distracted. Because Satan, I don't know, I don't spend a lot of time talking about the devil, but I don't think darkness needs to destroy us. I think it needs to distract us. And one thing that'll distract us is keeping an eye on all this other stuff or making a big deal about what we're doing. But man, thank you. Great question. I hope I gave you an answer.
And by the way, that was from Matthew in Fishers, Indiana.
Matthew, I've been to Fishers. I like that place. I'm coming back. I bought a tractor today. Isn't that awesome? Yeah, I'd fit right in. I got this tractor. Mine's air conditioned though. I got this tractor because I'm planting a vineyard. Isn't that fun? Do you know why? It's an ambition. It's not a capital A ambition, but I just thought, I think they're cool. I don't know much about grapes right now. I'm not much of a wine guy. I like the corks. I like the label. I like the bottle. Just don't like the taste. But my hope is that I like the vibe. I think it'd be fun. I've never planted one. I've read a lot about vineyards. Seemed like Jesus was always talking about them. So I thought I can learn a thing or two about it. I hope what you'll do is be able to see your ambitions in like small, medium, and large, right? So large ambitions, build a school in Afghanistan for a bunch of kids. Build a school in the former capital of the Taliban. That'll keep you regular. Do these things, but not because you want to draw attention to it. Do it because you really want women to be empowered. You actually want women to learn enough that they can decide things for themselves. And you don't have to tell people what to think. Tell them who they are. Jesus is going to let people know the rest. And find some small ambitions, right? Whatever. Why don't you get a magnifying glass? Just go look closely at something. You can burn ants with it if you want, if you're cruel. But what I would do instead is I would just look closely at your life. What if you take 1 hour after we're done and just look closely at your life? Why don't you take that magnifying glass inside and find the person that you love the most and memorize their thumbprint? You will be the only person on earth that ever took the time to memorize what was never been repeated before. I'm telling you, man, that's where the good stuff it is. It isn't across an ocean. It's like right inside your door. Cool. What's another question?
From Heidi in Ledbetter, Texas.
Ledbetter! Been there.
This is great because you talked about Maria and she actually gave in to your pursuit.
Ah.
So what is one memory you wish you could actually live again with sweet Maria?
Well, it was pretty fun. She was a little bit uncomfortable having these kids of ours 3 times over, but I thought it was a pretty cool night. I just got to tell you, you walk in, with nothing in your arms and you leave with something in your arms. It's kind of neat. One of the things that I like the most is that she is so level on everything. She is just really knows who she is. She is devoted to the family. That is her thing. As a matter of fact, she wrote a book called Love Lives Here a while ago. And for the book release, what she did, she got a medium-sized pizza. She cut it up into a couple pieces. She's like, released. Now I'm different. I'm like doing this. But she's just really comfortable in her own skin. But the one time I got a glimpse of her was I was driving her as she was in labor to the hospital and the light turned red and she turned to me with one of those looks and she said, "Run it." I'm like, Who are you and what have you done with my wife? So I think we just look back at these times where we get to see another side of somebody, their tenderness, their empathy. I'm emotionally incontinent, man. I cry at everything. And so one of these times where I'll just well up as somebody's talking about, just had the honor of being people that call from the back of the book. I've been at bedsides over the phone with people that are moving on to be with Jesus. I've been other times where people are trying to sort out a bunch of stuff in their life. And those are the things that I want to not miss a moment of with Sweet Maria. And I reflect back on those moments when I got to see another facet of who she is. And it's more like a kaleidoscope. It isn't just like one or two things. We're still discovering stuff 33 and a half years into this. Crazy. Go ahead. Great question.
All right, here's another great one too. This is from Hannah in Hartselle, Alabama.
Yes, come on.
Now, Bob, how do you incorporate your relationship with Jesus into your daily life? I struggle to make time for everything, and I often feel that my relationship with him suffers.
Oh, what a great question, Hannah. Well, I'm telling you, I love that we're talking about Alabama. Favorite movie of all time, Forrest Gump. Do you know, and this actually has a purpose. We're going to get to answer your question. But remember, he ran back and forth across the United States, back and forth, back and forth. And there's this iconic scene where he's running across the desert and he stops and everybody stops. They're like, he's going to say something. And then Forrest Gump said, I think I'm going to go home now. I love that. Do you know Forrest Gump had been running for 3 years, 2 months, 14 days, and 16 hours? Don't ask me how I know that stuff. I'm a lawyer. I just memorize junk. And so one of the things that I found is that running home is where I found my greatest ambitions. That's where I found the greatest sense of purpose. That's where my faith, my family, everything is connected the most. And so what I hope that we'll do with as we're pursuing our ambitions, that we'll find these things that might take us away, but we'll continue to run home. Maria and I have a deal. We don't talk about where I am when I've been over this last 8 or 9 years. I've been traveling quite a bit, maybe 110 cities a year in 10 countries. So it has been like gone. But here's the deal. I usually fly home at night. And when somebody asks Maria, where's Bob? You know what she says? He's on his way home. What if we decide that we're going to be the people that are on our way home? Ultimately, we're going to be home with Jesus. But what if we run home to each other, just constantly looking for ways to return to ourselves, return to some of these beautiful ambitions we had? I don't know if in all this chatter I answered your question, Hannah, but I'm glad you asked it. What's another question for us?
All right, this is from McCormick in Grand Portage, Minnesota.
Come on.
All right. Now, how do you handle life when you reach a moment of, oh no, I've bit off way more than I can chew?
Oh, wow. That's like Tuesday for me. That's constantly. You know, this camp we've been talking about, well, we've got 50 horse stalls and the horses are just starting to arrive. Here's the crazy part. Never been on a horse. I don't even know what end to put the hay in. But one of the things that I'm doing is constantly doing things that are beyond me to get done. You follow me? That I would actually need help from my friends. I would actually need encouragement. I don't need their cash, but their help, their camaraderie, their information. Just put yourself in a position where you actually need it. What if you set your sights on doing things that only God could do? Like the only way that thing could get pulled off is if God jumped in. Now, I'm not saying live a life full of drama and distress and become the person that's the victim all the time needing saving. I'm saying be so engaged. Find that 20 seconds of courage and just keep leaning into it. So what I do is I just try to not go for the low-hanging fruit. I probably could have found somebody to go out on a date with me over 26 years. But you know what I did? I kind of waited. And I'm so glad that I did because I really found somebody that could teach me. And Marie doesn't tell me what to do. She reminds me who I am. She reminds me of these ambitions. She says, hey, what about that thing? That whatever. She doesn't try to micromanage it. She pulls out from me. She draws my name. It's kind of like Jesus to Peter at a time where Peter said, I don't even know the guy, and the rooster's going off. Jesus said, you're a rock. I'm telling you, call people out of themselves. Just pull that out of themselves. And what they'll find themselves doing is things that would otherwise be by them perceived as impossible. Great question. And Grand Portage is an awesome place. Been there too. This is reminding me, I've been a lot of places, not to Sussex, and I hope you're asleep by now.
Now, Sherry in Ellen, Texas, has a great starter question from where we're all struggling with at times. And she says this: why is it so hard for some people to even dream?
Oh, Sherry, I'm so glad that you asked the question because it really kind of teases out the thing underneath the thing. Like, what is it that's actually kind of got you wrapped around the axle? For each of us, we have these different things. Think of them as a limiting belief. And I spent some time talking about it in the book, but it's a common concept. It's a thing that has kept you like bumping against this barrier, and it's actually self-created. If somebody said, well, Goffs aren't good at math, then I would just have the belief somebody would put something in front of me and I would just parrot what I'd heard all my life: Goffs aren't good at math. I don't know if we're any good at math or not, but I heard so often that we weren't. I heard Goffs aren't mechanical. And I'm like, well, so then I've been in a couple tight spots where I actually needed to fix something. And you know what the small voices behind me were saying, my worst angels? You're not mechanical. You can't fix it. And so I just want to go and check out the return address. Sherry, do you get a bunch of junk mail at your house? We get a foot of it a day. You know what I do? I just see who sent it. And if I look at the return address and it isn't from somebody I know, I don't open it. Some of us don't go for the big dreams because we're reading the junk mail. We're reading these old lies, these things that may have been true when I was 7, but you know, it's a half a century later, maybe things changed. And the promise of the scriptures is that we'd be new creations. Like old Bob, I've spent 61 years with him. New Bob, I met him 13 hours ago. Oh, and I think, what is he? Still can't play the banjo very well, but who's new Bob? Who's this new creation? And if you really believe that, that wasn't just a Hallmark saying or family Christian books, or you really believed it's a brand new Sherry, then I think you'd start challenging some of these beliefs, some of these limiting things about what you couldn't do, how deep you couldn't go, how much risk you couldn't take. I hope that makes sense to you. I'm going to tell you one thing. My dad loves me a lot, and he told me when I was a kid that what rattlesnakes do here in the Sierras, they get underneath logs so that when the sun comes up, they're out in the shade. But when you get to a log, you got to jump way over the log or you get bit by the snake, right? And so I spent 60 years up in there. You know how many rattlesnakes I encountered under logs? 0. And that's rounding up. But every time I get to a log, you know what I do? I jump 5 feet out. You know why? Because my dad, who loved me, he wanted to express love. He instilled fear in me. And I just think he told me that because he loved me. Plus, he probably didn't want to suck the venom out of the calf of my leg. But what I want to do is to challenge, understand the return address on some of these things. And I think you're going to find a lot of freedom once you understand it. Then you can start working on fixing it. I went to a place called Onsite. These guys, this isn't an infomercial for these guys, but they've just done a great job. They just brought me back to who little Bobby Goff was and what lies I'd been told. And boy, I'm telling you, find some people to surround yourself with that will remind you and lead you back to those places so I can say there's not a snake under every log. Great question, Sherry. Glad you asked it. What's another question? Come on.
All right, along the same lines as Sherry, here's Dennis in Philadelphia. He says, as a person who's been struggling to find their passion and calling in life, what words of encouragement would you give?
Yeah, Dennis, man, I think everybody's trying to figure this stuff out. Like it's not like somebody goes pro at this. They have a leather suit and they're sponsored by like Hallmark and Hershey's Kisses and all this. We're all just trying to figure out what our purpose is. I think for all of us, one thing that I've landed on are these things for love, acceptance, connection, and a couple authentic relationships. That's what I used to love: acceptance, connection, some relationships. And so finding my purpose, there's also some scripture around that. It was Jesus's disciples. They said, what's our work? And you know what Jesus did? It was John 6:29. He said, your work is to believe in the one God sent. Isn't that crazy? Yeah, so that what we're supposed to do is just believe in Jesus, keep your eyes fixed on Him, and then I just think there's another verse. I'm a Bible verse guy. I write books and I don't put Bible verses in them, but I just find like a lot of like strength and focus and clarity as I'm just checking these things against the scriptures, like Paul said. But it's Song of Songs, which is an awesome book, but not all verses. There's a verse in chapter 2, and it says this: "My beloved is mine, and I am his." Man, Dennis, what if you really believed that his plan for your life is that he would be yours and you would be his? Wouldn't that be awesome? What if your work was to keep your eyes fixed on Jesus? And then just go do whatever seems like a good idea, unless it's knocking off liquor stores. But what I would do is I would say, what am I good at? And if you're good at playing the bagpipes, get a kilt. If you're good at fixing relationships, maybe get an advanced degree, learn a little bit more about counseling so you can do a better job at that. If you want to be a speaker, just start talking to people. If you get pulled over, talk to the policeman. Say something that makes sense to you to say. If you're having a difficult time with people, if you want to be a peacemaker, which Jesus said is like way up at the top, practice. Find people who have been out of shape about something. Do that. So Dennis, I think our lives are on the job training for eternity. And if we're really going to spend forever with Jesus, I just want to get good at a couple of these things right now. And one of the things I'm getting good at is keep my eyes fixed on Jesus, undistracted by all the things going around, aware of all the things going around, but undistracted. Great question, Dennis. Thank you.
All right, we're jumping to Michaela in Redondo Beach.
Michaela, what an awesome name, by the way. I can't believe my parents named me Bob. I'm like, whatever, I could have been Michaela. Yeah.
Bob, if you could ask God one question about the universe, what would it be?
Well, there'd be two questions. One is, could I have more books to sign? And number two, what I'd want to understand is why it's so confusing and why do we have such a little period of time to figure it out? In other words, it could have been a lot simpler. I had a hamster once. His life seemed pretty simple. It didn't seem very confusing. He went on the thing. He went around. He did a couple circles. He ate his stuff. He did his thing. Like, why is it so vexing sometimes? We have relationships, and it's not just biology. I mean, relationships get really confusing sometimes. Right? There was a guy that called me from the back of one of these books, and he said, Bob, tell me the one thing about relationships. I'm like, you've never had a girlfriend, have you? Because there are many things about relationships. It'd be like asking an astronaut, what's the one thing about getting to the moon? It'd be like, I don't know, arrive. But one of the things that I want us to do is to just actually continue to make your faith simple, but don't you dare make it easy. I want to continue to make things simpler for me to understand. I think that's why I think in terms of stories, in Matthew, it said that Jesus never spoke to anybody without telling them a story. I think I know why. Because when he said, it's kind of like two sheep and one got away. Here's the smartest theologian ever to walk the planet. And he's talking about sheep. Why? Because everybody knows what that feels like. Like, I hate that when that happens. I think if what we did is we were fully engaged in what we were doing, we were undistracted by what was going on, they would actually get back to the important work of just continuing to live our lives. Great question. Come on, give me another one. We got a couple more minutes for questions.
All right, now keeping it deep here, we're jumping to Kirk in
Grand
Rapids. Can you wheelie your dirt bike?
You know what? I can. I got a KTM 500. That thing, well, it just looks fast sitting on its kickstand. And I've actually gone over the back because I'm just not that good at brake. I'm like all gas, no brake. And one of the things that I did when I turned 60 is I got this dirt bike. I wanted to learn how to jump it. And I'm not that good at it just yet, but I want to just end up pushing myself. I don't want to be the guy that has this sedentary life. So it isn't just adventure. I mean, poke me with a fork sometime if you ever see me climbing Everest, because it just means, some guy like you, Kirk, short roped me to the top. But I want to live a life engaged. And I think people that are pursuing their dreams and ambitions are always looking for ways to get more and more engaged. Great questions. Oh, that's why I'm planting a vineyard. That'd just be interesting. I don't know anything about grapes or horses right now, but I'm going to know a lot about them later. Go ahead. Next question.
All right, from Melissa in Danville, California.
Oh, I love Danville. Come on.
Do you still have your office in Disneyland?
You know, I do, but I've been kind of kicked out of it. I'm told that Disneyland is going to open up again in July. I heard one guy snuck into Disney World. I'm like, buddy, I'll pay your bail. But one of the things that I'm really looking forward to is finding that place of availability. Like I put a really high value on being available to folks. That's probably one of the gifts that we can give to each other. It doesn't cost us a nickel. It just costs us a little time. I get still about 100 phone calls a day. Isn't that crazy? And I just love answering the phone and just saying hello. There's something beautiful. I just think the more available that we are to one another, we say this idea of Christian faith isn't just a series of doctrines that you agree to. Because I've met people that have great doctrine and lousy theology, and a theology centered around Jesus and around his kind of availability to people. Man, I'm telling you, that's really worthwhile. So yes, I do go to Tom Sawyer Island. Yes, it's always on Wednesday, 10 to 2. Come and see me. And I'm always sitting right across from the pirate ship. I love that place. Come and see me.
So good. And I think all of us, if anyone who has followed Bob Goff, has felt this question brew up in our hearts and minds.
Okay, come on, hit me.
This is Mary from Huntley, Illinois. She says, I want to be Bob when I grow up.
Mary, aim higher.
But how do you find the energy and, more importantly, keep it?
Oh, man, it's all Red Bull and Pop-Tarts, Mary. One of the things that I want us to get real about as we're thinking about our ambitions is get real enough to say every day isn't awesome. You know, every day has a possibility of being awesome, but I wake up, actually one of the things that I deal with when I'm alone, I'm not around Sweet Maria, I get super lonely. Isn't that crazy? Yes, you wouldn't think about that, like the balloon guy, they're like, whatever, get a horse. But to actually just take a deep dive into that and to say, gosh, where does that come from? Like, what is it that is keeping you in that place? What do you need to return to kind of understand that? And so what I want us to do is to become a more humble version of ourselves. Like, not me to be a more humble version of the three people I admire, but to say, who's Bob with all of his picadillos? Let me take a deep dive and understand those, where they come from, so I can actually be of help. It's in the Corinthians that Paul is talking about how God takes us through difficult things so that we in turn can meet people when they're going through difficult things and give them comfort, not the kind we could come up with ourselves, but the very comfort we receive from him. And so I think if we just get real about it, if we're willing to do that deep dive, then we can actually be useful. Some people that have been in a lot of pain. So we aren't there to rescue, but to identify and stand with people. Emmanuel, God with us. You know why? So we'd be with each other. We'd find each other's ambitions. Philippians 2:20 says this. It's Paul talking about Timothy. He says, I don't have anybody like Timothy. He's a guy who takes a genuine interest in the people around him. Isn't that great? And if you want to find your ambitions, start taking a genuine interest in other people's ambitions. Say, how can I help you in? I teach at Pepperdine Law School in addition to St. Quentin. And at Pepperdine, there's calls that I get every year about admission time. And there was a young gal that called. She was going to another law school and she said, man, I didn't get into Pepperdine. I really want to go. What do you think I should do? She said, I actually, to be honest, I haven't read your stupid book, but my friend has. And she said, when you got into law school, you sat in front of the dean's office and you just pestered him until he let you in. So she said, what do you think I should do? I said, I don't know, man. I have no pull there. I'm just an adjunct professor. But you know what? If it were me, I'd get in my car, I'd drive through the night, and you could make it to Pepperdine by 7:45 tomorrow morning. And you know what? She did it. And sitting out in front of the dean's office the next morning, we had a little conversation. There was some folks in on this caper. The dean walked out and said, what do you want me to tell you? And she said, just tell me to get my books. And he said, go get your books. That's somebody taking a genuine interest in another person. And you know what? I bet that dean went back feeling like $1,000,000. And I think that's the crazy part. We think if we make it all about us, you will find nothing less fulfilling. But as you take a genuine interest in other people's ambitions, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to write a book? Give me a call. I'm actually pretty good at it. I won't be able to spend an hour with you, but I can spend a couple minutes. And say, what do you want to write the book about? And say, like, I want to talk about my dreams. I'm like, really? Tell me your biggest dream. I think as we're doing that to other people, it's a reflection of Emmanuel, God with us, because we're with each other. Great question. Come on, give me another book or two.
All right, before the next questions, here are more books. Can you tell us all where to get these books?
Oh, you can
that are
get
signed?
them just about anywhere, but there's actually a place where you can get these ones. There's an at link, and the at link is premiercollectibles.com/dream big. So if you want one of these bad boys, get it there. And there's going to be a whole bunch. They've given me so many things to sign. It's crazy. So I'm just going to turn on a show, maybe Swiss Family Robinson. And then I'm just going to sign these things. And I hope you'll enjoy getting a copy of these. And then if you have ambitions, talk to your friends about them. Let people know about them. Ask them, what's your next step? And is there any way I can be helpful? Every single time I answer the phone, I just say, how can I be helpful? Feel like I'm working at Chick-fil-A. Go ahead. Give me another one.
All right, here's such a good heartfelt question from Jessica in Lakewood, Colorado. Bob, what is the best encouragement that you can give a man that doesn't know his self-worth or have confidence in who he is?
Oh, man. I'm telling you. Man from South Lakewood, Colorado. Man, welcome to the water. We are all in the shallow end when it comes to understanding ourselves and why we do some of what we do. But what I want you to do is take a deep dive. I want you to stop listening to everybody at the edge of the pool telling you what you ought to do and to say, what's one thing I'm certain of? Whatever it is. Find one thing you're certain of. Find one thing that you're uncertain of and get real with that. Just say, like, I'm not certain about this, either my faith and my family and my whatever, and then just deal with that. Jesus never had a problem with people that were confused. All the scriptures were, he got bent out of shape when people were faking it. Take Ananias and Sapphira. I mean, this is a guy that was way more generous than I've ever been. He gave away everything, almost. But here was the problem. He kept some. The problem wasn't that he kept a little bit. The problem was that he said he was in a different place than it really was. Man, so much respect for you to just say, man, I'm just feeling like this isn't working. So instead of having somebody give you advice, what I would say is find people who will tell you their experience, but you'll know they're the right people when they're more interested in your experience. To say, what have you felt? What have you experienced? How has that gone for you? What was your best day? What was your worst day? Let's bracket this a little bit. Is there any way? And it's not, the goal isn't yippee skippy. The goal is understanding. Because if we can see it, we can start fixing it. Boy, great question, man. Give me a call sometime. Happy to talk to you. Just call when the sun's up in the air. That'd be awesome. I got to get some sleep.
All right, only a couple more questions.
Ah,
I know,
rats. Come
before we
on.
wrap it up. And it's
Come
not
on.
because of a shortage of questions, by the way. This is great, but it's shortage of time. But because you just offered your phone number, we are jumping to Carrie in Dothan, Alabama.
Come on, Carrie.
And she says this, and it's so good. Bob, I'm a big fan, and similar to you, I've given my phone number to all of my customers and try to be accessible to them at all times. But some days I get upset because I've given so much of myself that I lose my sense of privacy in my life. How do you manage with most of the world having your number, and don't you have days that you just want to be left alone?
Oh, yeah. Heck yeah, Carrie. Don't answer the phone. Throw it away. Here, I'll show you. Take this and go like that. That's really expensive. But what I want you to do is just be able to walk away from this thing. Where I want you to be is where your feet are. I want you to be fully present. If you need a break, if you need some rest, I want you to know, Carrie, rest is holy. Get some. There's something beautiful about that. God didn't put you on earth so you could work yourself to death. What he wanted to do is be in relationship with you. And you're not going to be much fun if you're always worn out. And if you really believe that Jesus didn't need your help, he wants your heart, that he wants to actually hang with you and know what your desires are In Philippians, it talks about making your desires known to God. May through your prayers and supplication to lift these things up to Jesus. And this is a God who says, I know what you want before you pray it. Why in the world would he say that? I think he wants you to make your request known to yourself. I think he wants you to know what you want and why you want it. And so you can't get there if you're just dog tired all the time. So maybe what you can do, think of tithing a little bit of time to just say, you know what, after this time, I'm just going to go Periscope down and I'm just going to spend some time. I'll read a book. I'll go for a run. I'll do something else. Go catch a fish. But there's something really beautiful about rest because it'll recharge your battery. We build a lot of wells down in Africa, and what you do when you drill the well, you put the pump handle on, you start pumping that well. And the more you pump the well, the faster these aquifers start opening up. And it's called the recharge rate. You see where I'm going with this? Like the more you pump that handle, the faster it recharges and recharges. But if you're all handle and no stop, you're going to run dry. And what I want you to do is stop and let that well recharge. And spend some time in scripture, spend some time, read Peter Pan, whatever it is though, spend some time and ask Jesus, who does he want me to become? Man, great question. I'm with you on that.
All right, and we're going to close it with this one. And this is really great.
I have separation anxiety. It's crazy. I am looking at a screen and I just hate, I don't know why that is, whether I got left in a grocery store as a kid, but I just, when something I'm speaking at is done, I hate it. It's that feeling, oh no. Yeah, isn't that crazy? That would be an example of something. Now I'm not wrapped around the axle, but I'm going to try to understand it because I want to build my empathy for other people that might be doing things or acting in a different way when really they're reacting to something that happened when they were 8. Go ahead. Tell me your question.
All right. What is your hope for the ordinary person that picks up Dream Big?
Oh man, what a great ending question. My hope is that what you would do is you'd find your way back to one of your ambitions. That you'd actually say, yeah, this is the person that God says I am. This is an ambition I had that I just put in a shelf. Somehow it got buried under a lot of clothes, an old tennis ball, a bowling ball, a basketball, everything. But I want you to unearth that, build some new shelves, and to say, okay, new me, new shelves. What's something that's a really high priority? What's one of the top shelf kinds of things? If faith is important to you, just say like, man, I'm going to refocus on my faith. Awesome. Well, what's another? So what might be a shelf underneath that? You might say it's your family. Like those feel like Sunday school answers. They feel like they're just too easy. I want to know what's on the 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th shelf. That's the deal. What's that thing that you wanted to do? What's that? Don't think about a career. Think about the character. What character, what kind of a person did you want to be known as? I want to be known as a guy who's available. And I get to live into that every single day. I write some books. I answer a couple calls. What is it that you want? And I think that when we figure out what we're hoping for, it's taking the long view to say, I don't want to be just known for my opinions. I want to be remembered for my love and availability. Boy, do that and you will live a rich life. Hey, everybody, thank you so much for spending a little time together. This was too short and I'm hating that. I'm just like, I hate this part. Can I tell you that? But one of the things that will make me feel like it's worth it is if this is an on-ramp for you to just say, this reminds me of something little 8-year-old you wanted to do. Maybe in college you got shut down. Somebody said, oh, you'll never make a living, being a singer. Be like, I don't know, man. Let's give it a try. What's a bad day isn't failing. A bad day is not showing up and trying. And so you might try out for the thing. I have a friend who just got some tap dance shoes. Isn't that awesome? Now, I don't want tap dance shoes. That's just not blowing my hair back. But I just think mazel tov. That is so cool. Think of that thing. Just make it yours and then just head to the garage and tap away. Hey, you guys, God bless you. May he keep you. My prayer for you is that you would have clarity, not only about what you want to do, but the person that you want to be. And then along the way, you'd pursue some of these really beautiful ambitions because you know what? Heaven is leaning over the rails, just hoping that you will. All right, you guys, so long. Give me a shout if I can help you along the way. See ya.